Thea Rivera. I am the producer for Captivated and part owner of They Play Productions.
I'm Erik Blair. I am writer, creator, director, star sometimes, not because I want to be, of both Captivated and some other shows we've done. I'm also part owner of They Play Productions. Yeah, Act Two is structurally very similar in the sense that it's an intimate show. It's got the ability for audiences to be very interactive and very engaged with what's going on. Narratively, we thought about doing another party. We thought long and hard about what we were going to do with Act 2. And we decided that a party again wouldn't actually be as exciting as people might think it would be. So we decided to approach it from a very different angle.
Still a gathering.
There is enough of a bookend to what's happening that you will get caught up even if you haven't seen anything before. And the majority of the thrust of Act 2 is actually very different and requires nothing out of Act 1.
There were several nights where I was checking in my third group, and the first group was still grouped talking. And so they were from a 7 o'clock show, and my third group was like a 10 o'clock show, and so they had been talking for hours while we had two shows that had already been checked in. So we knew that it was really resonating with people. We had groups that didn't know each other before the show, but they went out to dinner afterwards, and suddenly we're like a whole pack, and we're running through what they thought was happening and what each other experienced, because you don't experience the whole show as yourself. You have very intimate moments with different characters and get different pieces of it. So it was comparing notes all the time.
I also got contacted by at least one individual from I think every performance that we did who wanted to talk about either what they thought was going on, or what the story was actually about, or what they thought was going to happen next, or how excited they were that they'd met new people and then gone out to have drinks with them and they were all determined to come back together for Act 2. That was sort of what I was hoping was going to happen. I wasn't entirely sure it was going to work, but I was hoping it was going to happen because it's part of what I wanted to do specifically with this show, was really create a place where audiences would get so engaged in what they were doing during the show that they'd be equally engaged with each other afterwards. And I think that worked tremendously well.
We went to Midsummer Scream just one time before last year and spent most of our time doing similar type experiences. There were a couple other things out there that had that immersive part that were like, oh, this can be done and actually mean something to people. Most of what I remembered from the previous year were the shows that resonated for me when something that you were doing actively mattered.
There are quite a few challenges that we've run across. It's trying to put together a 3-part show that you can see any one of the pieces and still be sufficiently entertained is not easy. It's actually why Act 2 took as long as it did to get put together, because I kept thinking about better ways to do that. Narratively, you've got to make sure that you keep the audience both clear on what's happening in the story, but also find a way to expand it, find a way to make it new and engaging, both for the audience and for those of us creating it. I don't want ever to be sort of circling myself and doing the same thing again and again. So I also try to find something that's both clear and engaging and appealing. And when it's all said and done, if you see all 3 parts, you're going to realize a massive story is going on. If you see each part individually or just one part, you're still going to have a clear beginning, middle, and end to the story that will allow you to remain engaged and have a good time with it.
You can't just sit and watch everything. It's not that kind of show. You can be very light touch, but you have to be a little more active in progressing where your experience in the show. So, I mean, you can be a little less interactive. Some people are going to be a little less interactive than others, but if you really jump in, you're not going to be disappointed.
I think what I find most exciting about Act 2 coming out is it's really a completely different way of looking at this story. We've sort of flipped narratively 180 degrees from where we started. I don't want to give away too much of it because there's some secrets hidden
Some
inside.
intrigue
Actually,
that
there's
we
a
don't wanna
secret
lose.
for every single audience member this time around. They're going to each get a secret of their own and get to decide what they want to do with it. And the choice is whatever you want. We're ready for all of it. But for those who have seen Act 1, they're going to look at the entire story very differently by the time they're done with this one. For people who have not seen Act 1, this is going to be a chance for them to see both how we structurally do things and I think have a really interesting story about another dead body. I think we have approached every show we've done so far from a lot of LARP inspiration. I don't consider these to be LARPs by any stretch of the imagination, but they're inspired by that idea, which means that the characters that we have in the show, they have a lot of information. They know themselves as characters pretty extensively. A lot of what we do in the rehearsal process is get the actors comfortable with their characters to the point that they can respond to pretty much anything an audience member can throw at them. And part of what I find intriguing about doing immersive theater right now in general is this idea of getting an audience to be more interactive than I often see. I enjoy shows where you go and you get told don't talk to the audience unless, don't talk to the actors unless they specifically ask you a question. That's great. But I came from LARP, where the whole point of the story came from actual interaction. So we tend to flip it around and say, ask characters something. Don't just stand there and wait. It's fine. If you have a question, ask them. They'll know what they can answer and what they can't. They'll tell you the story. They'll get you engaged. Do step forward. Do be involved in the story. And so far we found that most people, even if they start a little timid, they'll get there very quickly just because they see other people doing it and they realize that's where the fun comes from.
Because it is an immersive show, we do have actors that we've known from the immersive space, from the immersive community, some who haven't really done immersive, but were very interested in doing immersive. I've also done a lot of Ren Fair and other type shows that are more, you're a character for a long time. It's not you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. You're out there and you're on the whole time. And I think pulling from that space, pulling from the LARP space, people who have a lot of experience playing a lot of different types of characters in different types of situations, and people who can handle things quick on their feet. Also from the improv space, we've worked with improv actors a lot who can just take something that you have a limited amount of information to start with, and you just build on that right away, and that takes some practice. So Los Angeles has a lot of skilled people in a lot of those areas.
I think when it comes to where we find our actors, we do pull from LARP, we have pulled from improv, and we've pulled from the immersive group in general. What I know I look for is I look for people who have in some form or fashion had the ability to portray a character as opposed to portray a role. There is a distinction between the two. A role is something that has very clearly defined lines and you're going from point A to point B every night. That's most theater, frankly. LARPs and improv focus much more on the idea of having a character and sort of embodying that character, sort of living in that character space. And that's so close to what we're doing with the immersive stuff that it's in some ways just easier to find people who have that experience, because it makes it it makes it easier for them to go into a more narrative story, but still embodying a character as an idea.